Welcome back for another episode of the ADHD Goals Podcast. I have a really cool guest for you today. His name is Chris Sayburn, and we met on our ADHD coaching training course at ADHD Works, and we both share a common love of music and songwriting. But I have to say, Chris, you are a really good producer and songwriter, and I've listened to your Spotify and also your Instagram. You've got some great songs on there. So I'm really excited to talk about that. A little bit of background about you. You have your ADHD, so got a bit of autism in there as well as the ADHD. And you on your LinkedIn, you're a Christian creative, which we'll get into and talk about how that works. And you are training to be an ADHD coach, like me. So how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me on. Just so you are aware, anyone listening, kind of aware if you're watching the video back as well, my screen is here. So when I'm looking away, I'm not just doing the ND thing of not looking in the eye. I'm looking at you on the screen here. So yeah, I'll keep between the camera and being able to see you because I like seeing people's reaction.
Yeah, I'm looking at you on the screen and I hardly ever look at the camera. So I hope you don't feel ignored.
No, just going to put my camera in the corner like a bot. So it's easier for that. But no, thank you so much for having me on. As soon as we got in a group together, and the luck of the draw for the ADHD coaching, just thought you were such a legend and really enjoyed speaking with you. And yeah, your depth and your love of music and creativity as well just meant like I get to hang out with this guy now. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you for saying that. And I think the mutual sort of feelings of respect for how good you are at the production side of things and your songwriting. And I basically, after we met on the coaching course, I was like, I really need to get in touch with this guy and pick his brains. But yeah, I was listening to your lo-fi stuff on Spotify this morning, and I went through a little phase of trying to produce some lo-fi stuff, but I mean, my ADHD means that I get obsessed with wanting to do something for a short burst of time. So I bought a load of plugins for.
I'm with you already.
And then I was like, "Oh, this will be easy." And then what I did wasn't very good, so I was like, "Move on to the next thing." But no, always I've put a pin in it for, I need to come back to that. So yeah, I would love to actually pick your brains about that. But so tell me a little bit more about what a Christian creative is. Because obviously I think Christianity plays a big role in your life, but also to be able to infuse that with the creative side of you. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, as mentioned, I'm a Christian, so a follower of Jesus. And part of my faith is that believing that God is creative, and the first thing he revealed about himself in creation is being a creator. And therefore, if we are made in his image, then there's something about creativity in our DNA. And so for me, there's a real aspect of, being a creative, but having a direction or a purpose and a sense of flow from where that comes from and wanting to bless others, wanting to serve others through that. But yeah, it's just trying to combine those two things together really for a LinkedIn profile, but that would be the heart behind it. And I'd also write kind of Christian worship songs and things like that, and beats for helping people. Maybe some people would use it for like meditation or just chill out stuff. Other people might use it for prayer. But it's not just like, oh, Christians have to listen to it or this has to be a Christian thing. It's more of, I'm a Christian in this space wanting to be a blessing to others. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, so I'm thinking about going back to, right, I was just going to say that the stuff that you write, which is more sort of singer-songwriter, that has like a real sort of Christian root to it. But the lo-fi stuff, like, I mean, it to me, it just looks like any other sort of lo-fi
Yes. Yeah.
on Spotify. And I personally find it really useful for working to, because I think if anything's got lyrics in it or a melody, I then focus in on the lyrics and the melody, and I can't concentrate on the work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So lo-fi is perfect for me to work to. Yeah. But just going back to, because I was brought up a Catholic, but I'm an atheist now. But I remember some of the earliest memories of go to church was the hymns, and I love singing. And I sing myself, but yeah, it's just there. Learning all those songs and those hymns. It is a very musical. I was going to say pastime, but it is a musical thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very musical faith in terms of songs being part of the soundtrack of. Yeah, throughout scripture, people use song to remember things or to recite things to unite people together. So I think singing is a really beautiful aspect. And it's interesting what you say actually about the lo-fi aspect of stuff. For me, I found my voice, this is really like a weird sort of statement, but I felt like I found my voice in instrumental music.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a sense of things that were going on in me, processing pain and different aspects, things of the past, that just there was something in soundscapes and musicality that really sort of served me in that, and just found that other people really connected with that as well. So only done the kind of lo-fi or production stuff for the last 2.5 years, maybe. So I've learned all this from scratch, just from YouTube videos. And welcome to the world of ADHD. When you go fixated in, man, like people are like, how do you mix like that? How do you I'm like, I just watched YouTube videos 4 hours every night before going to bed and just drilled stuff, and didn't eat, didn't go to the toilet, didn't know my family existed for a while, until I had to put boundaries on these things and realize that actually that's great you're doing that, but what cost is that kind of coming to? And so there's these two aspects of this musicality and production of kind of growing up more in I was a drummer originally, and then more singer-songwriter stuff, as you mentioned. And then now kind of also exploring this world of musicality, soundscapes, lo-fi, because it slows down my busy mind, I find, with lo-fi stuff. And it gives me sort of space to kind of just be, rather than, just whacking on some techno or something. I could speed hoover or something, but then my mind's still everywhere. So it's kind of just, there's something about a stillness that brings weirdly for me. So I mean, enjoying that. But then, as you say, with being ADHD, I'm then going, oh, well, I either need to make something entrepreneurial out of this. I need to do something with this. I'm trying to live stream. I'm trying to learn keys. I'm doing melodic house now. I was like, oh, I like that genre. Then I'm doing another genre. And it's like, the hard thing is with all these things is trying to just put boundaries on it, I think, in a way that's healthy. And so, yeah, I've got this aspect of my singing faith in terms of that, also feeding and allowing to reflect and sort of be still through the lo-fi stuff.
It's interesting because I never studied music theory. And so when I was a much younger man and, going through the sort of, wanting to be sort of in a band or on stage, I just used chords that I had learnt from, learning Oasis songs or whatever, and then just stringing them together and then seeing what came out. And I knew no other way. And it was effective enough that I was able to write songs that sounded like songs. And that was it worked perfectly well for me. But then the older I got, I was like, yeah, but there's something missing from this process and I need to know more. It didn't mean to say that I actually bothered to learn any more about it. But then recently, I would say recently in the last few years, this concept of, I think the first thing that came into my sort of knowledge was the circle of fifths and sort of breaking down, because the concept of learning scales really freaked me out, particularly on a guitar, because I don't think yes, there are patterns there, but it's so up and down and it doesn't make any sense that it was such a confusing thing. And that's what I learned. But when I started learning how to do some production on, sort of GarageBand, that sort of thing, and it laid it out in a keyboard, it was like, why didn't I learn the piano? Because it makes so much sense, how keys work on a piano, scales work rather. And it's just this one scale sort of shifted up. And you think, oh, that reduces all of music down into 8 notes. And it's like, oh, flipping heck. Why did nobody tell me this in the beginning?
This is why I love you, man. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, this is been my whole world of the last few sort of like years trying to do this. And I'm learning keys at the moment myself. And it's a similar thing. I'm like, hang on, why has no one said this like in this easy way? But all this complexity that come with these things. And I'm just such an ear, like hear, like I say, I think it's similar to you. You just hear things and play by ear, but there's something about having the language or the tools within that to then to be able to really cultivate it and understand why you're doing that or not doing that. And I guess that's kind of sounds that daft, but the weird thing is I've been trying to like look at the whole thing of ND and ADHD and this ADHD coach thing. And there's, I'm living within it and there's beauty there and I'm trying to work it out. But where's the language and the sense of understanding of what the framework is of this? Yeah. What are the boundaries? What are the scales, almost the equivalent of, that you can work within and then understand what ADHD is, what it isn't? Like, what's going on here? Is it just me being an absolute numpty, or there is just something like actually that I'm wired differently that I need to be aware of? And it's just been this mad journey of learning. It feels like I'm just constantly learning, which is great. But it's exhausting, like in all these areas of life. So, yeah.
I mean, it's a sort of, you brought ADHD into it. And I think, to use what we're talking about, the music learning, the prospect of, you get a certain, you get as far as you can with with writing what you know. And then you think, no, there's more to this. There must be more to this. And then all of a sudden you've got this perception of, but it's so big to have to learn all of this. And then you get overwhelmed. And obviously with ADHD, you just start thinking, well, I can't do that. And then you shut down, you put it away, you do something else for 2 years. But it's exactly what you're saying, understanding that there is a framework, and whether that is with, music, of there only being sort of 8 notes or chords within a scale. And with ADHD coaching, well, what we've been learning is, we can go through the day and there's lots of different things that will impact ADHD. And it may feel that it can be completely overwhelming to sort of understand what it is that is challenging us today. But in reality, it is probably something to do with one of those executive functions that we have trouble with. Right. And if we can understand which one it is, then we've got a framework for then addressing that and breaking it down and tackling it.
Yeah, exactly that. I hear you.
So you say you've been sort of doing it for the production for the last couple of years. So what have you been doing? Have you been doing that for yourself, or how have you been doing that, like, for your community as well? What sort of things have you been asked to do or doing for you, just purely for yourself?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it started out literally just trying to, as I say, just enjoy sitting in it. I think it was a kind of lockdown time when we're a bit more, like everyone's going, what the heck is going on? And out of rhythm, out of everything work-wise, all those kind of aspects, and found myself with a little bit more time. And that can be a beautiful thing, or it can be a really scary thing. And then all of a sudden just found myself just messing around the computer and going, I think let's go for this. Let's have a go. And just started playing around. And then just like that was like, I love this. I want to learn. I just got this sense of wanting to find different kind of songs within me, or different kind of tones and textures. And I like ambient stuff anyway. I like quite a collective, like, sort of genre of music really anyway. And so just started doing it. And then again, classic ADHD fashion for me, it's like, oh, well, let's just live stream the process and just kind of, it might help someone else who's trying to do this. And I didn't know I had ADHD at the time. So I only got like diagnosed about a year ago. So before that I was streaming gaming and different things like that.
Yeah.
Just constantly doing new things and wanting it genuinely to be like, oh, you don't have to wait till you've got this nailed. Let's go on the journey. Because so much of this world now is like, here's the finished product and I'm just going to show you that and parade that, not the how you have the ups and downs getting there or how you journey through these things. It's this instant kind of like, I want everything instant and to be done now and it to be perfect. And I struggle with perfectionism anyway. So part of fighting that was, okay, let's just try and share the journey and enjoy that. And then it ended up kind of being making, people like, can you make me a beat? I'm like, sure, why not? So done stuff for like a mate's film piece, and there's going to be about the city of Leeds, and people like, sort of saying, oh, can you do this beat for church thing or like a prayer thing? I'm like, great, do that. People asking to collab. So there's a guy in Mondo Loops who's an absolute legend in the lo-fi scene. He's like crazy amount of followers and all that sort of stuff. And he liked my thing. We ended up doing a collab. I'm like, what the heck I've not got a clue on doing. I'm literally blagging it. Literally the whole, it was like a blag. So yeah, it's just kind of been growing like that. But again, for me, it's been now having to put boundaries on it because it's not my main thing. And I was like, oh, could it be the main thing? And then I really want to just touch on what you were saying before about that aspect of them feeling like, oh, there's so much that then you can learn and want to learn. And I feel like I have to learn everything. And then I go and sit down to try and action that and then feel so overwhelmed that I literally can't do anything. And so, but all these ideas and all these things and all these soundscapes and all this, what I'm going to do, the thing I go to sit down, I just can't start it. And then you feel shame and frustration and a bit like, then it's that kind of like, well, I shouldn't be doing this anyway. I'm out of my depth. I shouldn't, like, it's such a weird emotional roller coaster. Is it Van Gogh who like chopped his ear off?
He did, yeah.
Like that. It'd be like, I'll start going like, I'm going to nail something. This is going to be great fun. Even like writing a song about the peace of God. Yeah. Right, I'm going to write a song on the peace of God, and I'm like really in this, and all of a sudden overthink it, get stressed. I'm like, right, I just, you're like, why do I exist? I got my ear off. It's that kind of classic creative thing, but I think with ND as well, it has an added nuance to it.
Well, there's a couple of things that you mentioned there that I want to sort of go back to, but you talked about how you sort of started streaming during lockdown.
Yeah.
And how sort of sharing the journey, you discovered that you didn't have to wait to perfect it before. You just a bit freeing to get into it. And I found the same thing. Like the part of the reason why I started this podcast, I mean, I started it when I left my job last December. And it was essentially like, I found out that I had ADHD last year, and I knew that I was leaving my job, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew that I needed to give myself 12 months in order to discover what I wanted to do, and also tick off a long list of things that I'd always wanted to do, which is the ADHD thing. I was like, I needed to see where some of these things go and see where I end up. And one of the most liberating things for me was deciding I have a history of sort of wanting to make things perfect or never publishing what I'm doing. And I said, I've not got time for that. I need to overcome that sort of perfectionism or hyperachiever thing, which means that, I always used to think that perfectionism was somebody who did something perfectly all the time, but it's not actually. It's somebody who fails to do stuff because they want it to be perfect. And I thought, it's wanting it to be perfect and not feeling it's good enough to put it out.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so one of the most liberating things that I found was just saying, like, I'm going on a journey, guys. This, if you want to listen, you can, and see where it goes. And now I'm here and I feel, why didn't I ever do this before? Well, why don't I just like rip the Band-Aid off and sort of commit a bit much sooner?
So, do you ever find, sorry, no, please, sorry.
No.
So bad I interrupted. My mind's whirring. I'm like, I've got a question on that. I don't know about what it's like for you, but I've found that when I was in the early stages of not really knowing about it, not knowing or everything, but just going on the instinct of it and trying it, I probably made better beats and better things. And there's a sense of like learning and growing within that. But there's something that's almost like there's an expectation from others or on myself that I should be good at this now if I've put so much time or so much energy into it. And that ironically then sends me backwards. I kind of overthink stuff and then I'm more likely to not do it because it's almost, there wasn't awareness before, or it wasn't like, this has got to, be on Spotify or anything like it. It was simple, just creating. And I feel like I've lost maybe some of that, the beauty of that when it becomes about striving to, I can't release that because that's not good enough now. Or it wasn't as good as the last beat and I've got a hard drive literally full of unfinished beats. You look at my live streams, I've done loads of stuff and got halfway through and then just on the next thing. And I need to learn how to finish things and have a confidence again to like stop overthinking it, just get it out there. So I can do it in the start, but I'm struggling to do it now. It's weird.
So yeah, like I said before, when I didn't know anything about how to write songs, I found it much easier to write songs. And this probably sounds a bit wanky, but I did find that the song would come to me. Like I'd say, I'd play the limited amount of chords that I knew in an order that sounded good. And then I'd go, okay, what's the melody to this? And then as I was singing, the words would come, and then very quickly a song would come. And if I didn't finish it there and then, or have it, the outline of it, then I would then begin to procrastinate or try and be perfect for far too long. So it needs to come quickly, and it used to. But then, I'd start performing, at open mics and things like that. And then it became like, well, I need to get better at this. And then instantly I applied this pressure to myself that I needed to know more about this, and therefore it had to be better. And then, as you say, exactly the same thing. That's when it stopped. But I remember in one of the sort of the coaching sessions where we did an exercise on why I wasn't using creativity enough anymore. And it was that pressure of it needing to be perfect, which removed all the fun away from it. But I did something the other week with GPT. I watched a video on how to create a ChatGPT bot, which is essentially, it sounds complicated, but it's not. It's basically telling so you create a little bot for yourself, so that all the questions that you ask it's framed it already into a set of prompts that you've told it to think about. So it's not like you're coding anything. You're just saying you are going to be a ChatGPT bot that focuses on this. And so what I did was I said, you are going to create a sort of like a songwriting brief for a songwriter. And I gave it these, touch points to give me. I said, give me a song title, give me a genre, give me a song that it like, and a theme. So the reason for that is that I wanted to use it as a songwriting exercise to remove all of the things that I would immediately think were important about doing, that I would quickly get overwhelmed by. And I say, no, what I want you to do, I want you to just give me a random song title and theme, because I like lots of different song genres. So it would be an interesting exercise if it told me to do hip hop or calypso. I wouldn't do calypso. No,
calypso.
Yeah, but it was purely to give me a songwriting, the exercise of trying to complete a song. Because what I would find, I would try and write songs that would in some way be a therapy for something. And I was trying to exercise an emotion or a thing that had happened or process something. And so what happens is that once that becomes so important in my mind, I can't ever do it justice. So what I'm trying to do, okay, come on, woofing, I don't know if you can hear. So what I was trying to do was say, well, I need a way to write a song that I don't care about, so it doesn't have to be that important to me, but it goes, coconut, shush. How can I remove all that importance away from me so I can just go through the process of writing and finishing a song? And so, so I created this little GPT that just gives me that framework, a brief, and then I'm going, right. But guess what? I created it and I haven't used it yet.
Let's go. Come on, now. That's the one right there, man. So this is it. This is literally like come with these amazing things. It's like, I'm just like, I've not used it. I'm here. I have seen it. There is something I think I've just been like processing as you were like chatting on there, and there's got to be something around this idea of limitation actually being an advantage. So whether it be like a limited knowledge or like when I think of some of the best like hip hop producers and where a lot of the lo-fi hip hop thing came from, people like, Jay Dilla and different aspects, they were just using these little simple samplers. He literally had like a few seconds of recording time. Now we've got every plugin, everything that can do all this stuff. And I can't, like with someone with ADHD, like you almost obsess on all these different ones and you learn them all, but then kind of get to them, try and make a beat. you don't make it. Learn this
Mhm.
next, like I've learned so many DAWs, like the workstation stuff like
Mhm.
Ableton and I'm using now, but like I'm constantly flitting this. And there's something about limiting and that, your framework with your chat GBT bot thing of like, okay, just set the parameters for me so I can work within that.
Mm.
And it feels like in a world now that's so like expansive and so much information so quickly and everything's vying for your attention saying that's the thing you need or that's the, and often it's actually limiting, and it's limiting feels like a very negative word, but I guess it's putting the framework and boundaries in place again, where I feel like the world, everything's about like true freedom is about being able to say yes to absolutely everything. You can sometimes it's saying true freedom is saying no, I'm actually just going to sit within my lane here, or I'm going to try and do this sort of thing. And it always fascinates me, this want we have a need for more almost, yet that actually clutters and gets in the way of doing the simple things well. So that's a constant battle that I'm having. So I love that idea of the chatbot. So get that out there, brother.
Yeah, I'll send it to you
Please do.
after No, but
I'll use it either, but I love it. I'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Research it all and then not use it as well.
Yeah. But I found, one of the things that I've struggled with is I listen to a lot of podcasts, and this is coming back to what you were saying about, getting overwhelmed with the need of everything coming in. I find that I'm constantly listening to podcasts all the time, possibly to sort of quiet my thinking, to quiet my mind, stop me thinking about, ruminating on stuff. But I find that means that there's so much going in, but because I'm not always exercising my creativity and output, that the brain just gets clogged up. And what I really need is to have regular amounts of time where I'm sitting down for no reason, but being creative, just to open the valve a little bit, and just even if it's just the purpose of it is to have a still mind or some hyper focus, and just let that all out. But yeah, it's sort of something that I've struggled with.
Yeah. And I think that's where like the first thing we started about was, was me being a Christian creative. And I think for me, I'm learning more about that it's not about having an end product or a sense of like having to be something or achieve something, but something about just being that for me as a Christian believes creativity flows from that. And there's something that is very intrinsically what we're meant to be doing and who we are. It's kind of, there's something about just exercising like that for no other aspect other than worship or a sense of just being. It's quite freeing as well. But again, I always find myself being very entrepreneurial in these spaces and then wanting to make things and stuff, or if it's not going to like achieve something or not going to be able to be released somewhere, then what's the point? But actually the point is that it's really important just to create and it not be always an end product or a strive thing or a sense of churning stuff out. But that's where the best things come sometimes, when the pressure's off and it's just, I'm just going to sit here and create and enjoy. No one needs to hear it. No one needs to see it. And for me as a Christian, it's almost like doing that before God is actually quite a beautiful thing. But I'm like then chatting to God going like, so what we're going to do with this one then? Like, shut up.
He's like your band member.
Let's go.
Well,
All the way. You can do all the PR then. That'd be great.
I was going to say, I think this needs to be drum and bass.
I swear the Lord would love a drum and bass banger. I'm starting to do a bit of production drum and bass, so I'm feeling that. I actually did a Christian worship song with like in a drum and bass remix. So I was like, I hope he likes.
Well, was it Faithless that said God is a DJ? Was that there?
Mate, he's a bringer of the party. Loves the party. Come on, love it. So good.
No, we were talking before we started recording, just because I'm very conscious of like, when people talk about religions, is they can be very sort of, what's the word, is diversive? No. People can be split. As soon as you mention religion, people can just, they'll instantly, defend their point of view, and it becomes quite an argumentative point of view, and people don't actually listen to what the other person is saying. And I was sort of saying that I'm an atheist. I was brought up a Catholic, so I sort of understand churches, and I like reading about different religion. And a few years ago, I went to something called Sunday Assembly, which was created by two comedians that were sort of on the road together, Sanderson Jones and Pippa Evans. And they were like, they both went to church when they were younger, but were also atheists. And they thought that when we sort of, transitioned into sort of secular society, is that we actually lost a lot of what was beneficial about religion, the community aspect and the musical aspect as well, but also, thinking about a topic, as you would do. And so I went to that because I thought, there should be a lot more common ground when talking about these things, but people instantly split off into their own corners and don't listen to each other.
It's just very painful and sad.
Yes.
There's too many keyboard warriors. And as a Christian, it's like, there's too many Christian keyboard warriors. You're just like, bro, just chill.
Yeah.
Like the sense of everyone like trying to say defend, or it becomes this kind of like, I don't know, I'd stay away from like forums and in places. I love this kind of thing. It's about humanity engaging together, learning, growing, that sense of like, what's your story? Like, how do you see that? What's your worldview in that? And a learning and a beauty of that, rather than the sense of being in a threat or everyone has to think this or those kind of aspects. So I can see why those gatherings work in one sense. In another, I'm like, the gatherings are sometimes the worst part of like, sometimes like some of the church stuff, man, can be dull as and different aspects. You're like, oh my days, or some of the songs, different things. But for me, it's actually, that would almost be like party without the host. Like, I'm like, that's a great party, but like, the host is not here. We were supposed to be celebrating. And so I think for me, it's actually the faith aspect is important, and the rest flows out of that. And it's expressions of that, different ways of doing that. Yeah. It just fascinates me, all this kind of the different aspects of that. But as someone like this, the sharing, the sharing the peace, when like you sort of like, you may have done that in the Catholic Church, where you sort of say, turn to your neighbor and like shake someone's hand or say hi, share God's peace and stuff.
Yeah.
After me, with like being ND and stuff, I just want to hide. Like the autism in me just literally wants to like the Lord to take me now. I'm like, stop making me talk to the people around me. I like community. I love that sense, but like going around shaking everyone's hand, I'm like, not.
Well, that's essentially sort of why I've sort of moved on to talking about this, because I'm interested to know sorts of how, because you're autistic and ADHD, and were you explaining to me before we started recording sort of how that those two things can have a conflict with each other or have the opposite effects on each other. But I wonder how, because when I think back to what I sort of think religion is, or the bits that because I think religion is a big umbrella term that can turn a lot of people off. And I think there's a weaponized part of religion, which I think, no, that is not useful to us. But essentially, at the beginning of it, there's like a bit of a guide to life, of like a bit of ritual and sort of routine, which for people with ADHD, routine is good if we stick to it. And there's, community aspect, which we can sometimes feel isolated from because we close ourselves off. And so I wonder sort of how you, with autism and ADHD, how those things help you on a day-to-day basis. And I suppose from bearing in mind that there'll be listeners that aren't necessarily religious and they might be atheists like me, how I would interpret those in a sort of in an atheist way of like, well, you say prayer, I say meditation, or whatever.
Yeah, nice. It's great, mate. I think again, it comes back to the worldview of like, who am I? Where did I come from? Was it made? Was it a sense of collection of atoms? Different things kind of coming together. Like, I guess what your story of origin and significance may then carry on into how you see life. And if there's no end, like what happens at the end, those kind of things can sometimes inform how you live in the midst of that. And for me, sort of the Bible talks about being fearfully and wonderfully made, and a sense of like knitted, like as an imagery of like knitted together in your mother's womb. It's a sense of like, it's not an accident or this afterthought, a sense of, purposeful and beauty and craft. And so for me, trying to discover more what that means for me to be fearfully and wonderfully made in an image of God. And there's a real creativity that comes, and a real thinking with the ADHD, the sense of thinking different a little bit, which I think is a real beautiful thing that can really add to teams and to family and to society in general. I feel like then, I was saying before that like I'm the ADHD aspect of me, I'm combined ADHD. And so there's a real impulsivity within that and the creativity in a sense of, all right, we could just go and do this and change. And then the autistic side of me, is as quick as it is impulsive, my brain, it's then really like super cautious and like running through all the safety checks and the different things. Yeah, but that's outside of your lane and you don't like that and those kind of things. So there's this internal dialogue that's kind of going on, which is just, I'm learning and discovering more about that. And ironically, the ADHD meds I'm on, like, again, not everyone has to have meds. It's, not everyone can be on meds. It doesn't work for everyone. For me, that was actually helpful. And I found it helped slow me down and regulate my emotions a little bit more. But I'm finding like the autistic attributes are way stronger. And I feel also awkward about how I hold my hands, or when I'm talking to someone, I'm like, oh, am I looking at them? And it's a weird kind of thing. So there's this dynamic going on between those two aspects. But I think you're touching on like rhythm and routine, and the autistic in me loves that. So you can't see, but it's like, it's all very ordered. And the first thing I do, it's really embarrassing. So I've got, I'm married, I've got kids. As soon as you move anywhere or go on a holiday or anything, like the first thing I have to do is get the space that I'm going to be in, like nice lights or a sense of like, right, it's clean. I have to have it super, I can't have any dust and mess and things like that. It's just this weird, I have to clear the space in order to try and feel like I can then settle within it. So I have different lighting, different kind of aspects of things. And there's this weird thing, but trying to get some aspect of routine in life. And again, a lot of the Christian walk is about practicing what's like practices or a sense of a rule of life, and what are the habits and routines that you are forming that actually, you become what you're around, and what are you becoming, and who do you want to become? And that sense of what are the practices and the things you're putting in place to get there. So for me, prayer, like you say, meditation, or a different aspect of just almost fixing this, something bigger than yourself. It's not just about everything being like trying to be still, trying to center yourself, and however that is for you. For me, it's chatting with God and trying to just understand more about who I am in that space, and having community. I struggle with community, I'm not gonna lie. And that's a big part of Christian faith. It's part of what it means to be human, is to collaborate, that sense of, tribe together. I really struggle with it because feels like it can be forced, or I overthink it, or I overshare. And it becomes a stress point so I'm trying to learn to have grace for myself within that. But also, how do you do that and not just isolate yourself and shut yourself away? And so I'm trying to learn that thing, and church, helps within that. I've always been exposed to people, and I care about people. That's my biggest passion, is like seeing people come alive in who they're meant to be and what they're passionate about. And humanity, say, on a bigger scale, like rather than all this turning on each other, like what does it mean to really like have a humility to lift others up, whether you agree with them or not? What does it mean for a common good, a common goal? So I'm waffling a little bit, but I'm genuinely trying to work these side of things out, especially with the ADHD and autism, and how that affects. I don't know about you. I don't know when you got diagnosed and stuff, but like for me, I'm having to reframe a lot. And so the emotions and the different things, where I've been married now 20 years. So it was my 20-year anniversary, which is sick. So props to my wife, man. She's gold. She's amazing. But there's been a lot of then going like, oh, that makes sense why you struggled with that. Or, why. She used to call me the swinging. She called my heart once, like, heart's like a swinging brick, which I thought was very articulate. It's very nice. Cause like, we were saying like, do you want to look at this photo of the kids? And I'm like, wow, I don't need to. Like, I can see the kids, they're still around me. And she was like, what's wrong with you? Like, I'm realizing more my black and white, very autistic sense of, well, they're not dead. They're there. I can see them. So like, why? I just couldn't get my head around it, and trying to learn and understand things, reframe things, but also not allow it to completely define everything about my life. Like I've had teammates before who've done Myers-Briggs, and it's like, it's just been a weird something. So I'm on my reaction thing on OBS. It's done a weird thing. Anyway, it's like where people are, I've discovered I'm an F. whatever, MJ5 or something. It's like, oh, sorry, I'm late. It's because, I'm that. And you're like, you've got a coffee cup in your hand. Like, it's not, you made a choice. And it's this sense of not understanding about yourself, but it not then being such a label where you pigeonhole yourself. Well, I'm ADHD. Oh, I'm ADHD. So it means I can't do that, or I should feel it. I think it's just understanding more about that, how it works for you, what it is in, and then how to get the strength. That's why I'm so interested in the ADHD coaching. It's like learning the strengths. There's so many strengths, but there's real pain and real dysregulation of emotion, those kind of things. How do you build the strategies and tools to make that easier? But first and foremost, as a Christian, it's like, well, I'm a child of God. And then secondly, there's these other things. So that's how I see it all and how I'd frame it. So, yeah.
No, you were saying like, what was you? No, you sort of asking like how, you get it. What did you say? How did I feel when I found out? And I had found I got myself into a position where I think, how long ago was it now? So about 6 or 7 years ago, I got divorced, and that was a point at which I had to stop and reflect and sort of ask myself, how did I get to here? Because it was something I never anticipated would happen. Yeah. And so for the first time, I think, I don't know if this is typical, but of a young man, but like I'd gone through my life thinking, I feel like I'm right about this, that, and the other. And, everybody else is wrong. And I think some of the struggles that we had in our relationship, I was like, well, as soon as she sorts that out, we'll be fine. Yep. And it was interesting towards the end, she was sort of saying to me, maybe you need to go and see someone. Oh, why would I go and see someone? And then when you're sort of forced into that situation or getting to a point where you become open to saying, oh, maybe I haven't got all the answers. Maybe I do need to reflect on the way I have been or was. And so I entered into sort of almost swinging completely the other way and being so internally sort of critical of myself. Yeah. I sort of went through a grieving process for the marriage because I have kids. So I was no longer going to be the father that I anticipated I would have been. And so there was a big adjustment period. And then I typically went through a process of dealing with pain as I had taught through my 20s, which was to just go out and drink and, forget it, wouldn't not listen to it, which I think the dangerous thing is that a lot of people will say, oh yeah, but you give yourself a grace period of, of course you go out and go, go off the rails a little bit. But that sort of carried on for too long. I sort of was, I had depression, which you'd anticipate. But then I'd sort of isolated myself from everybody because I felt a lot of shame around that. Yeah. And then I slowly started to sort of come back to get it, reintroduce myself into life. But the point is, I'd gone around the houses there. The point was I actually started self-reflecting a lot more and actually sort of allow myself to notice if I was wrong. And then in those cases, then actually apologize and realize I did find it really hard to apologize before because I didn't think I had been right. I wanted the other person to understand how I wasn't trying to hurt them, but I had X, Y, and Z context to why I'd done that, which I wasn't able to articulate at the time. Well, and so, but then that led on to having some therapy about why I was unable to why I was procrastinating on lots of things that I wanted to do, which was sort of the ADHD. And in those sessions, it was suggested that I had ADHD. And then on that, I had a long journey into going, well, this makes sense. And I think throughout my life, I'd always tried to try and optimize the things that I was bad at. My previous career is as a designer. So I would always be trying to test and optimize new things, but without that understanding what ADHD was and realizing it's the way my brain works and therefore everything is affected by it. Yeah. It was literally just being too focused on a specific thing that was causing me a challenge at the time and not understanding how that impacts everything. But I found it really useful to understand that, because I think it allows me to arrive at a solution for a challenge a lot quicker, because I know what is going to work and what isn't going to work.
Yeah, that's huge. And like, one, obviously, thank you for just sharing that and being honest, like in this format for everyone listening, but also that, it's a very like vulnerable and sort of self-reflective thing to do. And I think, it's interesting there's about a million things going in my head. Because one is, it's the classic thing of someone tells something like a very personal, vulnerable thing, then you, as with ADHD, tell another story similar because you want to empathize and show that. But everyone's like, bro, why are you talking about yourself? You're someone else. But I think from my personal aspect of that is that that reframing aspect of things is, we talk about that. But what's hard is it doesn't change you can reframe and see things differently, but it doesn't change what's happened or the sense of actions or things said or done or whatever in the past of those things, not understanding yourself in that way and why those things may be there as a result of being ND. Then starting to understand, go, oh, that's why I struggle with that. That's why that kind of really triggers me. That's why I, can just get really angry very quickly over something that's insignificant in that space. And it's fine being able to go, I've got an understanding now. It doesn't change the effect for my wife. It doesn't change that what's happening in those spaces. And the reframing thing comes, it's a self-reflecting thing, but it's also how then does that assessing wider? How does that work for my kids? How does that work, in a sense? So I'm trying to learn a lot about that. And it was interesting that, like yourself, my sort of diagnosis came from a place of trauma and from a place of pain and loss and just prolonged years of, a similar thing, kind of going in a downward sort of depression spiral and my health getting worse and different kind of aspects. And when I was doing counseling, the counselor was like in the first session, just going to throw it out there. I think, 99.5% sure that you've got ADHD. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. I'd probably not. Second session, 99.9%. I was like, that's rude. And she's like, I think you should watch these videos. So I watched this YouTube video on ADHD and I was going like, I don't think I even believe in ADHD. It's probably just another fad thing. It's probably another one of those things if you want to label themselves and stuff, and that's fine. It's not me. And I'm like, oh my days, that's my story.
Yeah.
Like watching it going like, what? I just thought that way. And then going on this mad journey and then finding out more. And then my sister, is basically got ADHD. She knows it, which is like my wife is, sorry, my mom is autistic and then in my family, like my nephews are autistic, different things. I'm like, why didn't I think of that? This could be an option, but like within that. And if I'd found out earlier, what would that have changed? But then you can just go so much on like, what if? So much can be like, oh, what if I had this diagnosis earlier? What if then what would that effect been on my kids or my marriage or my work and things like that? But there's nothing we can do. All you can do is like, what now and what next? Like I spend so much of my time in what if, and it's just a waste of energy. Like, so, okay, learn from that. And what now? What things can we, in the light of what we do know now, in the light of like kind of learning these things? Okay, what do you need to take responsibility for? What do you need to go and say sorry for? All those kind of things. What now? How do we start to move forward and not just be trapped in the past, which I literally made my bed in the weeds for, and kind of was licking my wounds for about a year, and it was causing anxiety around me. And I've had to learn what it means again, to go again, to stop living in the past and start to now like move forward in these things. And part of this has been understanding more about, how my brain is wired and what are the beautiful things about that. But what are the real painful things and the real aspects that others won't understand? Like not being able to go to the post office and post a parcel back, causing absolute anxiety, like ordering a takeaway, an impulse, and then constantly checking every door, like every sound, is that the takeaway person? And is that, why does that cause me anxiety? I don't know. There's just these simple things that just should. I'm 41 years old. I'm like, bro, get yourself together. You should be able to go to the post office. You should be able to like, and I'm like, do you know what? I can't at the moment in time. And now I'm learning a bit more why, having grace for that, challenge where I can challenge. But it's one of those things, it's just choose your battles and learn where you're trying to grow first. And
I think as you were sort of, when you were speaking then, knowing that you have ADHD doesn't automatically, I mean, it's you can't be cured of ADHD. You can only manage it. But the point being is, even knowing about it doesn't necessarily stop the things happening. And I'm thinking maybe particularly about sort of RSD, like rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop you feeling that immediate pain reaction to rejection in the moment. But knowing that RSD is a thing and knowing that you're susceptible to it, and then that gives you, I think, the space to say, okay, that just happened. That's probably RSD. Now that I've climbed down from that emotional space, how can I sort of reframe that and process that? And then maybe before I put this away with a different wrapping on it, rather than putting it away as that person has hurt me or that person must think this about me. And so, it gives you the knowing about it and learning the tools about it can help, but it doesn't necessarily stop it happening.
Yeah. Have you found it where, sorry, this is trouble with me. I start asking questions. You're hosting this, bro, and I'm asking questions. I just find it so, I love this kind of thing. I'm just learning. So am I okay to ask?
Well, no, this is a conversation. This is, I like it going back and forth. Go for it.
It's just made me think like, it's so true. You can know, but it's different to then like knowing. And there's something about with the RSD aspect of stuff. So I know now in the framework of why things can seem so extreme on emotional scale where I'm like, it doesn't make sense. But one of the things I struggle with that I should just be able to go, RSD's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, don't worry. Don't worry. Your emotions are going to feel, but it's fine because in a day it's going to feel different or it's going to be a sense. And I can't seem to get myself to a place where like I'll be in the moment again of the emotion and I can say, don't worry about it. But it feels like it's the first time I've ever had it. Like I've never known about ADHD. I've never known about RSD, never known about training, never known about like coaching, it's just this sense of it in the immediate can be so hard. But I think now it's that what I'm trying to learn is kind of go, even just saying it and saying, don't worry, this is, yes, sit in emotion. This is real. This is what's going on. But like, what move do I need to make now? So rather than waiting for my feelings to change on something, I'm now having to choose to walk in a direction. Like it could be like for me, like a kind of thing of like truth about who I am or, all that sort of aspect, or I know that I just need to do it. I'm trying to learn how to do that and let the feelings catch up rather than everything be so emotional and feelings driven. But I wish I could get to the point where I'm like, I just doesn't, feel like the RSD completely off-footing you all the time, a sense of like being able to sort of steady yourself and be solid. And again, that's why I have to spend time with God, or I have to spend time remembering who I am, and that those kind of aspects, otherwise everything in this world just throws me off because I'm like, oh, I should be that, or I should be doing this, or I should this, or that. I just have to try and stop. But I wish I could get to a point where I know RSD is coming, so it's fine. But there's this sitting in the emotion I can't articulate. You can see I can't quite get vocabulary in the words for it. And I'm like, other people seem to have nailed this, or I don't know, maybe I can't seem to get that I know it's coming, but it still shocks me. It surprises me that it's there.
Well, the metaphor that I like to use, I don't know if you're familiar with the chimp paradox written by Professor Stephen Peters.
No, I don't think so.
He's a professor, but I'm trying to do, and you might have heard of him. He worked with like Ronnie O'Sullivan, like to just sort of sort his mind out for performing. So, but he wrote this book called The Chimp Paradox, and what he uses these metaphors, which makes it very easy to understand the complex workings of the brain And essentially, there are sort of two systems for thinking that we use. There is what he calls the human brain, which is the part of the brain that has evolved in us as humans that allows us to do all the executive functioning things like, so thinking through hard tasks and learning new skills. But then we've also got this system in our brain, which is the chimp, which is essentially what we've carried with us through evolution and we share with sort of chimps and other species. And that deals with that's almost like our autopilot. So it deals with the fight, flight and freeze responses.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly switching between those two systems. So a good example would be if you're learning to drive, you're going to have to use your human brain to learn that skill. But essentially after a while it becomes habitual and you can do it on autopilot.
Yeah.
But with ADHD, because we've got the lack of dopamine receptors in our brain, we're constantly not able to fill up that bucket that we need refreshing each day to cope with that rational processing. So we spend a lot more time in the chimp brain emotionally responding to things. And so that's why RSD is a lot more prevalent with people with ADHD. And so what I would say to that in response to how do I get out of this is the worst thing you could say to someone is, let's think about this rationally when they are in the moment. When the chimp is in control, you're not talking to the guy who's going to think rationally. Yeah. So don't try and rationalize with somebody who is having an emotional response. First, you've got to try and say, what is going to help my brain switch from this system, the chimp system, to the human brain? And that's things like immediate things like breathing, get oxygen into the brain so the other part can work, and try and calm that way. And only when you're in a calm space frame of mind, only then can you sort of reflect, use your human brain to rationalize. And that allows you to sort of reframe and put it away, because that reaction is going to get stored into your computer, your memory, and be referenced again in time. And it's only if you go through this sort of practice of reframing things and putting them back in there that maybe in the long term, when your chimp tries to search for evidence of other things that have gone wrong, and therefore I must respond to that, it might actually go, oh, well, I've reframed that. So it is perhaps a bit easier. It might make it easier to respond less emotionally next time.
Should be an ADHD coach, mate. Good at this stuff.
Thanks.
You're funny. When you're saying this stuff, like, I'm like, that obviously like the kind of the chimp and the sort of natural brain or the kind of human brain aspect of it. I'm thinking like, that's just my ADHD and my autism.
Yeah.
There's this reaction thing and a sense of like, no, we've already processed, that's where it fits within the system, or it will fit. Is this kind of like, it feels this very much that, the now and the reactionary, and how my autistic aspects wants to stop the reactionary. It wants to have everything in order. So there's nothing that you have to react to. It's just all proactive in terms of sense of like, I know what's coming. I know how to, what's the challenges of how you've just preempted everything and planned everything. And it's the sense of I guess your equivalent of the chimp brain thing, like in terms of in the system, that is the ADHD kind of like constantly wanting to change the parameters and impulse and try things and do different aspects. And then there's this other side of me. It's just, I think that's a really interesting thing, is that it feels like in that methodology, the two systems aren't really working at the same time. It's like, oh, this will flow into there. Whereas the ADHD and the autism are like constantly, it's like both systems are constantly sort of like fighting, trying to like get,
only one of them can be in charge at once. And I suppose this is what makes it so, this is why it can be a challenge explaining ADHD to a neurotypical person, because the brain, they've got the same systems working in their brain. It's just that they have enough to service the rational part of the brain for longer to allow them to do things. That's why they've got an importance biased nervous system. I'll do the importance things first because that makes sense and that will take the stress off me doing this. Whereas with ADHD, because they've got a lack of dopamine, they need interest and novelty, distraction in order to get the dopamine in there. Like your brain is blind. It's like a blind thing in your head. It doesn't care where it gets dopamine from. It will just get the quickest source of dopamine. Yeah. And so it's like when your fuel gauge goes down, it sets off an alarm that goes beep and a light goes off. So if you're driving the car, you go, where am I going to get some petrol from? That's your instant reaction. And your brain in ADHD, because you're always on empty, you're always thinking, where am I going to get dopamine from? Where am I going to get dopamine from? So I think I didn't explain what I was saying, but that's why it's difficult to explain to neurotypical people, because you explain, feeling rejection or procrastination, and they go, well, I've experienced rejection and procrastination before. And so you have. But the point being is, we are more susceptible to it because we're constantly being distracted, or because we've lived our lives like that. We've now built up a psychological perception of not being or being different or failing at specific things that we've, accrued all these negative labels internally. And that can be the hardest thing to unpick.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. No, I hear you completely. And it's interesting on that as well, that whole thing of labels in terms of an event or something that then you attach an emotion to. Mm-hmm. And then it's hard to kind of reframe that and different aspects. And that for me is a real, with the RSD type of things. If there's, a certain event or a certain person or a certain thing that's happened, it's hard then to kind of see that differently. And you have to really work harder than it seems that other people can to be able to just forget that or move on from that, or just kind of, it's fine, doesn't matter anyway. There's something that sticks with you in these different aspects that I'm finding with the ADHD side and RSD that, trying to learn how to kind of process better.
Yeah. And speaking of processing, we spoke about this before recording and whether we would get onto it, but you experienced some grief very recently, and we talked about how we might talk about how you are processing that with your autism and ADHD. So do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So my dad, he died 6 months ago, 6 months, and it's actually his birthday today. So happy birthday, Dad. Yeah, raise a beer or a glass of milk. See, towards the end, you liked a glass of milk, so
I've got a cup of tea
sometime tonight. Yeah, well, raise a brew. My dad, a legend. He was an amazing man. Yeah, just the loss is huge. And again, that RSD side of it and feeling that sense of loss and a rejection, not in terms of my dad, but that sense of it is gone and is not there and it's different, and emotionally trying to process those things. But again, just being completely honest with you, though, as a Christian, a sense of I believe that he's safe. I believe that, he's actually entered into life in its fullness in one sense. So it's us bugs down here. He's all right. He's chilling. So there is something around that, I feel like it's not just the end, and I believe I'll see him again. But in this time of grieving and working that out, which again, the Bible says grieve, but not as those without hope. So I think for me, there's a sense of hope, which helps, because I'm trying to challenge just the emotions of it. But also the autistic side of me is that this black and white thing is crazy. So I had bereavement counseling on which I found super helpful, and kind of processing some of this stuff. I just cry through most of it, to be honest. But that's good. I'm learning. That's just great. Just kind of be all the way through it. But she's offering me these things why don't you write your dad a card, put it on the mantelpiece? I'm like, well, no, because he can't read it. I don't need to read it. I've wrote it. She's like, oh, she's like, well, why don't you plant a tree? I'm like, because I don't really feel the need to plant a tree. It's almost a sense of is that how you're supposed to grieve? Is that how you're supposed to? Am I supposed to be doing this? Am I supposed to be now and I'm trying to learn and go, do you know what? Grief for me, what's different today being my dad's birthday than any other day? It wasn't like we went out and partied every single time it was his birthday or anything. So it's, again, this detachment thing. It's not I feel like I have to keep on a tradition. my dad didn't like fuss and those kind of things, but there's almost this expectation of, I don't want, you're supposed to make this a massive occasion, a massive thing. So part of me is like emotionally like, oh, what if I'm doing this wrong? And should I be grieving like this? And what if that bites me in the bum down the line because I'm not grieving properly? And when I actually take a step back and go, I miss my dad so, so much. And there's this pain and there's this loss in a sense. And once, that's the price of love in one sense, is that I can grieve. There's something to grieve about. I think it's a real gift that I had that amount of time with him. And it was a really, beautiful relationship we had. I love him so much. And a sense of loss of not being there. But I'm like, but he's not there. So I'm not going to pretend he's there. I'm not going to try and, suddenly do this all or nothing thing that I've had to really work on in different aspects of my life. I'm so all or nothing with ADHD. Is that it's almost like, right, well, now I'm going to do this because I'm going to make my dad proud, and I'm going to go after this because this is for my dad and stuff. Like, my dad was already proud. So it's like, oh, I can't do this anymore. And I can't because I shouldn't experience joy because I'm like, no, my dad wants me to be happy. My dad wants me to be content. He wants me to keep going, to keep growing. He said that before. He died of a tumor, and it was very quick and all those kind of things. But even in that, he was trying to serve others. And so for me, this aspect of ND is trying to keep control of my emotions, putting the strategies in place that we've, some of the things we've learned about from the ADHD coaching, and understanding the strengths and saboteurs and the different aspects that will throw me and derail me in the midst of missing him. But also the gift in one sense is the autistic side going, well, that's life. One thing's inevitable is death is part of life. That's just, and for me as a Christian, it's like death is only the beginning. So it's a graduation, not the end. And so those two things together, being able to hold my faith, hold those aspects of, yes, the emotion is going to be up and down, and I just go with that. And I cry if I need to cry. I kind of take those times, but I'm refusing to allow it to shape every single aspect and every day or everything like that, or every day that it comes up that, it was a month and my dad died today. And so I shut down there, and I find that easier to do. The black and white thing is not there. So it's time to crack on and do that in a way that is not ignoring it, but it's not trying to always hold in the forefront, because that's not what my dad would want. So that's some of the things I'm trying to deal with and process in the midst of it. In 6 months' time, I'll be very different. You'll be like, yep, he got it wrong. He should have dealt with that. He should have should have planted that tree. Yeah. Look at him now. He didn't put that card on the mantelpiece. He didn't put it on. So, but I think it's just interesting, this NT. So my friends who are NT, who are kind of like, their suggestions of how they deal with grief is just very different to how I am dealing with it and how I do. Even some who are Christians, who are not, those kind of aspects it's more of like, it's just interesting how there's no real manual. And therefore I tend to go with whoever shouts loudest. Oh, that's how you do it. You know how to do this stuff. Or I really don't know. I'm trying to work things out. You must know. And then more and more going, no, actually I do know. I do know what I need to do in this situation. And I need to sit in that and trust it more. That it may look different to everyone else's reactions, but it's the way that I need to grieve and I need to do that. And my mum is autistic. And she's doing amazing. She's doing so well. And again, it's a similar thing, so hard, real loss, but she's had to just keep rhythm and her routine, and she's gaining strength through that, as well as her faith. So, yeah.
No, I'm just thinking that I've never had, as yet, I haven't lost any of my parents. So I've not experienced loss that sort of close. So I can't speak from experience, but I suppose anecdotally, people tend to question, one of the challenging things is questioning why somebody has gone, or, it wasn't fair, or this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And I suppose what I'm hearing from you is, you've got your autistic side of you that's saying he's not here anymore. So move, there's no point in questioning why. And I suppose even if you did, your faith has sort of got answers for that anyway. So it's not as if you're going down sort of a rabbit hole of questioning why, which can, with ADHD can sort of ruminate. And, that's probably somewhere where I would be struggling and sort of dwelling in for far too long. So I suppose, well, from what we're hearing is like the autism part is asking, am I doing this right? Am I doing what everybody else should do? But it sounds like you are in a way.
Thank you. Thank you
Doing,
for that back. Yeah, I think I am. I think that's for what I need in terms of that. I feel like I'm doing the right thing. And, you know, just as a side thing on it as well, which has been interesting, is that I'm also more aware now. I think the ADHD meds have helped this. I'm aware of what's around me more. So in terms of before the autistic side of different things, like my kids would ask, how you doing? And I would just share everything that's good, everything that's bad. Like, or people just, it could be a stranger. How you doing? Oh, well, actually, yeah, I'm all right, but this is going on and this thing. And they're like, oh, wife's going, you're just too honest. Like, shut up. Why are you telling the kids don't need to know this. They just want to know you're okay. Like, it's just the classics of like, why asking how I am then? Like, if you don't want to know how I am, why would you ask that? I can't work out the nuance. This kind of like, that's just culture. People just say, how are you? They don't want to know. They just want to know. And it's trying to be aware of what's around. So the way that I grieved in terms of that is like, how does that serve my family? So I don't want to start projecting a way of grief onto my kids or a sense of like, chaos in me and different things. So part of it is being like, okay, I want to own it and I want to sit in those emotions and never shy away from that I miss my dad so much. But how does my faith sustain me in this? 1, 2, how can I be aware of what would trigger with RSD and different things? And how can I actually leverage some of the autistic aspect of saying, no, well, he's not there now. So how are you going to start to, that whole thing of what now rather than the what if aspect? And how do I do it in a way that's healthy for my kids to see that, yes, you cry. Yes, you're upset. Yes, there's a sense of loss, but it's not going to derail everything in and around and that we're good. I'm trying to remember, what I've got at being a dad. Losing my dad can't take away what I've got in being a dad. And so the kids have already lost a grandparent. They don't need to lose a dad as well in terms of those things. So just trying to learn and grow and be more aware of how my reactions affect those around me. And that's been one of the biggest things I've learned through the meds and ADHD coaching and understanding the effect I have on those around me. Because I can be quite a big personality. So when I walk in a room, people notice. I'm either life and soul, wanting to like solve everyone's part. If I go to a naff party, bro, like I feel it's my responsibility to bring the party when it's got nothing to do with me, but I just can't handle this sense of, I'm reading the room and they're having an absolutely crap time. They're loving it. They're like, I just and in one sense, it makes me a great pastor and doing things because there's an empathy and a sense of like just reading what's going on. In another way, it's exhausting and so frustrating and trying to, again, just be more aware of not just my own internal thing and how it affects me, but how does it affect those around me? And that's where I feel like I'm starting to grow more as a human, as a dad, as someone who's understanding more about myself in those things. Yeah.
No, I certainly get that a similar thing of even if I don't know somebody or I'm having a social interaction, meeting people that I don't know, like I can be quite shy if you don't know me, or if I don't know whether I can, if we don't have, I'm trying to figure out if we have the same sense of humor so that I can be myself. But if we are in a social setting, and they go quiet, I try to figure out what this is. And I think it's like that sense of RSD, rejection. It's like, well, if they're quiet, that's because they're not interested in anything. So I've got to make it interesting. But then go the other way and be like, I talk about myself. Or if they say something, like you mentioned it before, if they say something, I'll say, I've done that as well, because chances are I have, because I had to go at everything because of ADHD. So I'll go, oh yeah, I've done that. And then you think, did I give them enough space to say that thing that they were interested in? Or did I just jump in and say, I've done that as well? But yeah, it's just, I can't let it go quiet. I've got to bring the party, if you like. But
it's like, I just literally, just that. Honestly, I think all the other people should be like, yep, I hear you, brother. It's like, it feels like such a common shared experience of that. It's like, bad. Constantly do that. But there's a beauty about the empathy though that comes with ADHD. I think there's something like, there's a sense of like strong moral compass, wanting to do right by people, just understanding the effects of these emotions have. And there's just seems to be like a real empathy and beauty that kind of comes with that. And that's a cost to us, but I think it could be a real benefit to those around us, and leveraging that as a strength and not letting it overwhelm you. That's the hard thing, is that the strengths can easily be distorted into weaknesses pretty quickly. because they become overwhelming or feel like you've got to be the rescue of every situation, or you've got to be the one, and you exhaust yourself in terms of chasing things and stuff. So it's going to be a fun learning thing though, right? This is part of it.
Yeah, I'm learning every day, and
25 careers in the process. It'd be great.
Yeah. Listen, Chris, it's been fantastic chatting with you today, and I really hope that we chat again in the future. Hopefully we'll be able to get some music.
Honestly, I
stuff going.
genuinely love to do that. You can see on, accountability on camera, people need to ask, has that happened? When did that happen?
Yeah.
And what's the end product? We've got to, maybe there should be a challenge. Like we make like a jingle for this, something like or another episode, or like a future thing, something that's got to have some kind of goal on it, and we hold accountable to, and it's got a purpose. So maybe there's something we could do is like a new, I don't know, theme thing or something. So
Well, I like the fact that you're trying to make me accountable, but I'm also scared.
I'm just in the impulse.
There'll be the wrong.
Don't worry, when I come off here now, I'll be like crying in the corner going, why did I agree to that?
Yeah. I'll send you the ChatGPT bot, and then maybe we can see, you can spin one up, and we'll challenge each other to
I love it.
write a song on whatever the brief it says.
We'll together, mate.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I want to wish you the best of luck with the ADHD coaching. I didn't ask. I mean, do you have a website yet, or is that something further down the line?
Yeah.
Or where would you like, if listeners want to know a little bit more just about you or get in touch, where would you like to send them, whether that be a social media channel or LinkedIn or something?
Yeah, probably I've got like a little link tree thing in probably just go on Instagram. If you're on Insta, I've got like a little link tree bio link in the bio. If you want to find out more about the different music stuff. But yeah, if you want to connect on Instagram, I always love that. No to the ADHD coaching thing yet. Here's the ADHD and the autism thing together. I can't start it. I've not even started it until I've got it, like, understand all the material, all the protocol, all the order. It has to have sequential order of how I do it. I can't learn on the go in term that's frustrated the life out of me. So hopefully one day there will be a website. There'll be something, but it'll happen in a day. I'll have a whole graphic design thing done. I'll literally nail it in one day, website done, but that day has not arrived yet.
Well, just because I did go on your link tree today, and there are some really good things on there. So there's you've got a boom bap sample pack on there, and you've got
charge as well.
Yeah. So if anyone listening is interested in the music side of things, then you can go and download that, and then also listen to you on Spotify and have a look at you on your social channels. So yeah, there's lots to be getting on with there.
Legend. Mate, thanks so much. Proper appreciating. Just think you were just a good guy, man. And I really enjoyed every time we've got to have little bits of hangout. When you've shared stuff on the chat on the ADHD thing, I'm just like, this guy's got so much wisdom, and it's been really fun to be able to do. So thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for saying it. I'm actually trying to learn to take compliments better. I really struggle with going, what should my face do now? Thank you. Well, listen, man, it's such a pleasure to chat with you. And I think, you're a fantastic musician and singer and producer. So if anybody does do anything today, just go out and check out some of your songs. It's really good. All right. So take care, and speak to you again, man.
See you soon, bro.
Yeah.
Bye.
There we have it. Thank you so much for listening this far. If you want to hear more episodes, then please subscribe on YouTube or whatever podcast platform you use. It really helps to spread the word. So if you know anyone this episode could help, then please share it with your friends. If you want to follow me on social media, I am on Instagram at ADHD_goals, and you can find me on Facebook too. If you want to get in touch with the show, then you can email me at hello@adhdgoals.co. And finally, if you're struggling to manage your ADHD and you would like me to be your coach, then please head over to my website and get in touch. Until next time, bye for now.